Hey there, this is Kaylin with the Chronic Yet Undefeated podcast, and I figured that I would go ahead and do something a little different. Plus, I'm running out of free stock video for my other videos I've been doing, so perhaps this will be a fun new avenue to explore and perhaps feel a bit genuine and maybe a little less scripted. It might feel like I tend to write down all my thoughts at once, and I like to read it as I've written it because I'm not always that confident in my speech that it sounds good or that it flows well. I pause quite a bit or I forget what I'm saying in the middle of a sentence. So this is definitely a step out of the shell for me. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a try. But one thing on my mind that I've been thinking about is illness. Of course, right? Chronic illness. But I was sick this whole past week, and today I finally got that last sleeping in that I really needed, and I felt so much better this afternoon. And I'm so thankful for it. God is so good. I'm alive. I'm here. I'm healed. Healed from the cold that I had, at least, right? But even so, that's so good because I was so bogged down this past week, and I don't think a lot of people think about how just getting a cold, it's a seizure trigger, and I didn't think about it a lot, but I remember I would say, to my neurologist, hey, yeah, I had a seizure, but I'm also sick with, a cold or a flu, and they've said, yeah, that's a trigger, and that's more than likely what's causing your problem. So, and it's become more frequent when I've gotten sick. So, infection is a definite trigger. Who knew, right? A lot of chronic illnesses, they get worse when you catch a cold or something because the stress on the body and everything is a big old trigger. For me, when I got sick, I was just really tired all of a sudden. I thought, oh, it's just from the day. I'm really tired, and I couldn't keep my eyes open. I thought maybe it could be allergies or something like that bogging me down, I did go out, I did do stuff today, and I just had to sleep. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just have my full night's rest and feel better tomorrow. I felt so terrible the next day. It was awful. I could barely get out of bed. I felt so tired. And my sinuses were dry, like really dry. And then I started sneezing, and then my throat started getting scratchy, and I got a cough. And all those things together, I was like, okay, yeah, I have caught something. I'm definitely sick. And I thought, well, maybe I'll sleep, get some rest, and maybe in a couple days I'll be better because I can rest. And that's not what happened. I ended up being pretty much down and out for the whole week. So what happens is I'll get an infection, an illness of some kind, and that is a trigger. And then lack of sleep from illness. Lack of sleep is also a seizure trigger. And on top of that, the stress it has on your body is a trigger. And it just feels like a never-ending cascade of triggers I can't seem to get away from when I'm sick. So when you're sick, if you can, you get rest, right? Well, sometimes I'll get rest, and then I just won't sleep good because I feel like I've had a seizure in my sleep or something like that. Like I didn't sleep deep. My sleep wasn't meaningful. It wasn't helping me heal because it was just causing problems because I was sick. And then that lack of sleep is a trigger. And it causes more seizures later because it's just this nasty cycle. When you have seizures in your sleep, you can't sleep deep. Then you're sleep deprived, which causes more seizures, and it's a very difficult cycle to get out of. And then sometimes I'm feeling really weird in my head, it feels a little buzzy in there, or I feel like I'm in a dream a little bit, or I feel like, wow, I'm just not thinking very sharply today. And I had a moment like that last week where I was just like, I'm going to try to stay awake and feel better, see if my medication kicks in and I feel good. But it just, the longer I stayed up, the worse it got. So I tried to lay down, and, I told my husband, I'm not feeling all good in my head. I feel like I'm really on the edge of a seizure here, but I need sleep because this is not getting better when I'm awake, and I need the rest, and I'm going to try to get the rest. And when I did feel like I got some rest. I didn't feel like I didn't think I had a full tonic-clonic seizure in my sleep or anything like that. But my arms did feel really exhausted the next day, and I just felt very fatigued. So something could have been going on in my brain there for a bit. But I didn't feel super rested, and so that leads to meaning more sleep. And it was just really difficult to recover. And there was just this one day I had to make a few phone calls, and I was just crying. I felt just so sad. I felt just this sadness come over me, and I just was overwhelmed. I knew I couldn't think good, and when I can't think good, and then that sadness kicks in because I'm frustrated and overwhelmed, and I'm just crying and upset, and it's just a little hard to get out of because it's neurological, and it's difficult to not snap at somebody. It's difficult to control my tone of voice well enough to be like, okay, because I'm just overwhelmed in my head, things feel louder than they normally do, or lights feel more awful than they normally do, even though I don't have a headache or anything like that. And this just, I'm just hoping I get better, and having a fear of falling asleep too, being like, am I gonna wake up? Am I gonna be alive tomorrow? Is this gonna get so bad I'm gonna wake up in the hospital? I mean, there's medications, but they don't always stop everything, and you can get to a pretty nasty point before using, a heavier medication, or it's all a bit difficult. But for a lot of us, a cold just isn't a cold. It's something that progresses and it gets worse because it aggravates symptoms, and that's a really rough week. And some people might think, oh, well, you just have a cold, just stop, you're fine, you'll get better. But they don't understand all the symptoms we get that are extra on top of the cold. A cold's bad enough, but when you have chronic illness you're dealing with, on top of it, recovery feels like an uphill battle. And I get it when people have to go out places when they're sick. Like, you might have to go to the doctor, right? You might have to go to the pharmacy to pick up a medication your doctor prescribed. You may have to take a sick child into the store to get a medicine because no one wants to watch your sick kid and get sick. Or you're a single parent, or you don't have a good support system, or there's a million reasons you might have to take your sick kid to the store with you. And I understand situations like that. I've been there in situations like that where I've literally had to go out even though I was sick. And I don't really like doing it, but there's those situations where it's like, well, you kind of have to. And we can't always prevent those. But what I'm talking about is where I draw the line here, is where I notice that people, they're clearly contagious. Like, I know that some people with asthma cough, and people with allergies tend to sneeze, but this is not like that. This is like, I'm talking about, they have a really runny nose, or they're rushing to the bathroom to throw up, or they're coughing so violently and so loud they don't want to disrupt everybody, so they're leaving the room. They clearly have signs of contagious illness. The body is trying to fight it off, but the virus is also using means of bodily fluids to spread from one person to another. So if you have a runny nose or a fever, vomiting, diarrhea, things like that, you are contagious. And it's just, I'm thinking about how people, they they go somewhere and it's 100% optional for them to go out. Like taking their kid to the park when they're sick. That was more than likely an optional choice. Maybe there's a few situations where it wasn't, but more than likely it was optional. Or people go to church and they're like sick. They're like coughing, they're sneezing. Like you can tell they're ill and they're still there. They can't get through worship. They're just coughing and sneezing so much. They're rushing out mid service, coming back in. And I mean, you just wonder, like, why couldn't you have stayed home, perhaps? Maybe that would have been a lot more comfortable, a lot less risky to everybody else. I know that there's people that are asymptomatic, and sometimes you can spread illness before you ever know you're sick. And that's not anybody's fault. Like, no one can be held guilty for something that they didn't know. But if you know you have a contagious illness, please stay home. If you have that choice, if you have that option to just stay home and rest and not spread it, please do. And I thank you to all the people out there that do stay home when they're sick rather than pass it along to everybody else, because it's just so difficult, and I can't pinpoint who exactly I got it from with all the places I've been and the incubation period that illnesses need to show up in your body and make you really sick and all this stuff. I can't pinpoint it down to one person, and that's a little more tricky than not. It takes a lot of time, and I'm not going to waste my energy trying to blame people for it. But if you have a choice to stay home, just stay home. Don't go to something optional, and maybe you went and you're like, oh, I struggled to get up this morning, but oh, it really wasn't that bad, and I got through it, and my kid had a lot of energy, but they got through it at the park. They're fine. They're okay. I get the getting out, fresh air, vitamin D. It does do loads to help, but doesn't really help the people around that you could get sick on the way. And it's really complicated when you have people that are like, well, I didn't have to miss out because I went and I was sick, but then they're soon going to cause other people to miss out because they chose to show up somewhere sick. So I just think it's a way we can love our neighbors as ourselves is to stay home when we're ill, when we know we're ill, and we have a choice in the matter to stay home or to go out, and that we should choose to stay home. Because to a lot of us, a cold just isn't a cold. It's so much more, it's so much worse. It can send us to the hospital pretty easily, and we're fighting really hard to just hang in there when we have chronic illness and to get better. And when our bodies are fighting us on the getting better part, it's very complicated. So that's just something I wanted to emphasize. And thank you for tuning in today. If there's something you liked, hit the like button. If you have anything you want to add or say, post it in the comments. And if you don't want to miss anything else, please hit the subscribe button. Take care. Bye.